What is network scanning and how does it work? How do hackers scan devices and get to know about the operating system and services running? Why information gathering is so important in hacking? Hold on, this video will get you the answers to all of these questions. Before we start, what's up guys? Welcome to Hacker TV. This is your friendly neighborhood hacker, Mr. Zero Cool. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, do hit the subscribe button and stay tuned. This video is about scanning a network and performing recon to gather information like operating system, services and open ports. We'll talk about computer networks and how does the scanning tool works. Without much delay, let's begin. Let's understand the basics first. A computer network is a collection of multiple devices interconnected to each other and share resources based on different services. Okay, and how does this work? Before that, let's see how a postal envelope gets delivered. The sender writes a post and puts it into the postal box, from where the postman picks the post and checks the address of the receiver and delivers it to the receiver depending on the location. If it's local, then the postman can deliver it himself. If it's not local, he'll send it to the another post office which has the reachability to the receiver. And finally, the receiver collects the post from the post box. Similarly, computer systems share data with each other on a network through a system of connected devices called as computer network. The post is similar to a data packet. The sender and the receiver address is something similar to the IP addresses. The postman and the post offices are similar to the devices or the medium responsible for carrying these data packets across the network. And above all, there is a standard followed by all these devices called as TCP/IP, which is a collection of protocols that govern how the data is transmitted and received. Now that we understand about computer networks, how can someone scan these devices on a network and look for open ports or services running? Well, it's quite a simple task if you're good with some of the tools. Before we jump on and learn about one of these tools, let's understand how these tools work. Every device on a network has the ability to send and receive packets and follow a set of rules which are governed in the TCP/IP protocol. Now, one thing that's common across all the TCP-based communication is the three-way handshake. And every device on the network follow these three-way handshake before initiating any service. Now these tools, they take advantage of the three-way handshake to identify devices. One quite simple example is, if a device A sends a TCP SYNC packet to the device B, the device B will respond with a TCP SYN and ACK packet, and hence it confirms that device B is up and running with some services. Now, these tools send different TCP packets on different ports looking for different services running and have the ability to read responses from the different machines and understand what kind of services are running on these machines. For example, web server runs one such service responsible for hosting websites. They work by sending and receiving HTTP packets and usually run on port 80 or 443. And similarly, there are many other services like SSH, DNS, SMTP, Telnet, RDP, FTP, etc. And that's the not only feature of these scanning tools. They are much more advanced and can even detect the operating system and also scan for multiple vulnerabilities associated with the discovered services. It's quite important for a hacker to understand the network and collect as much as information before he can begin hacking into these devices. And this step is something called as an information gathering stage. And what we are learning in this video can also be called as information gathering via network scanning. So, in our today's video, we'll learn about one such amazing tool, Nmap, which is also called as a Swiss Army knife, for the fact that you can do so much with this tool. Without any much delay, let's quickly begin the demo of the tool and jump onto the CLI. In this video, we are going to learn how to use the Nmap CLI tool to perform network scans and look for various devices inside the network and try to figure out what services they are running or what operating system they have. I have a Ubuntu machine with me which is pre-installed with the Nmap tool. And if you want to look at the steps for installations for Debian based Linux, it's apt install nmap. Yeah, it's already installed. And if you are looking for the steps or installation based on your operating system, you can actually check this thing out. You can visit nmap.org and follow the download section, and can look at the steps for installation based on your operating system. Windows also has a utility called as Nmap, which is pretty much Nmap covered with a GUI interface. Now coming back, let's say I want to look at the version of Nmap. So this is the command, and it's running the latest version 7.7. Now before we run these scans, it's important to understand how we use these CLI tools, or how we configure these scans, or what kind of scans we want to run. So there are a bunch of options available to us that we can configure while running these scans. Let me jump on to the page over here. I'll drop in the links to these pages in the video description. So there are a bunch of command line flags or options available to us that lets us configure these scans, and the important one are the port scanning methods, and there are a bunch of options available to determine what kind of scan you want to run based on how Nmap actually performs that scan in the background. I'll not go in detail with all of these. You can just go through and have a read about how Nmap perform these kind of scans. Next is the port selection method. Let's say you want to run a scan on one single port or maybe a range of ports, you can actually configure it. The next is the timing related options, which lets you configure how fast or slow you want to run a scan, or how much network traffic you want to generate. So this is really important actually when inside a network there are some firewalls or IDS devices that actually figure out that some device is trying to perform some network scans. So this lets you configure how stealthily you want to run those scans. And the last is the output format and verbosity. So you can increase the verbose levels to figure out what are the tasks in the background that this tool is running, and you can actually save the output as well to a file, just to save these scan results. Now let's get back to the machine. This machine is part of a network, and if I want to look at the IP address, this is the IP address of this machine. And now let's say I want to run the scan on the devices inside this subnet. So I'll use the command nmap and configure the TCP connect scan over here. And let's say I just want to give the port range as 1 to 1024 and the network subnet as, so you see, so these are the different options that I've configured, followed by where I want the scan, and I'm right now running it on a network subnet, or if you want you can run it on a single IP address or maybe a host name. Now once again, I actually want to configure one more option. Let's increase the verbosity level to see what's happening in the background. Now that the scan has started, let's wait for the scan to get complete and see what results we have. Alright, the scan has completed in 17.04 seconds, and it has scanned 256 IP address and figured out that there are 5 hosts that are up, and this is some stats based on the network traffic. Now if I go up, I can see the details of the scan results, and I can see that these are the devices that are currently up in this network. Okay, fine. Now let's say that's okay. I figured out that there are some devices and these are the host names, but over here there is some interesting information which is quite useful for hackers. Now I see that this device is running a service called SSH. Okay, so I can probably test for any SSH based vulnerabilities and maybe try to gain access into this device or test for the security. Again, similarly, this device also has SSH service, and this device seems to have one more service along with SSH, which is an FTP service. Okay, let's take one more example, and this time what we are going to do is we're going to increase the number of ports and see if we find much information for, let's say, this host. And in this example we'll increase the verbosity level to another level. Okay, and I can see this time it scanned 4000 ports in pretty much very less than a second. And this time I have discovered one more service which is running on port 3389. It should be MySQL server. Yeah. Now that we saw that we can use the Nmap CLI tool to discover different devices, and also we can run port based scans to identify what kind of services are running. Now let us try and run the scan on any machine which is outside this network, let's say on a public network. And for this purpose I have my own website over here on which I'm going to run a Nmap scan. So the scan would be against the web server which is hosting that website. So let's see what information we can gather from this scan. So let's again we run the TCP scan for a port range of 1 to, let's say, 2500 to this host. Let's increase the verbosity level over here. Okay, I think I didn't give the option correctly. Yeah, it should work now. So you can see this particular website of mine is running on this IP address, and as of now it has figured out that it's a web server running on port 443, and it has an SSH service as well. And what interesting thing is that there is some other service which is running on some other port, and it's not completely able to identify what kind of service it is. Okay, no issues. So but the point over here is to find out what are the various open ports and what can be the different services running on those devices. Now in the last section of this lab, let us look at one interesting option of Nmap, which is -o. And with this option, Nmap will try to determine what operating system is running on this particular web server. Okay, let's see. Yeah, so now Nmap has a list of guesses based on certain patterns that it matches, and we have a close proximity to what kind of operating system this machine has. Again, these informations are really necessary, or I would say important, for a hacker who's trying to break into these systems, because at this step he wants to collect as much information he can and later on use this information into performing various kinds of attacks or try to exploit some old bug or vulnerabilities. Now with this we are done with the demo, and in case if you want to learn the Nmap tool for Windows, and do check out my video on Nmap with Windows. And before we jump to the end of the video, it's always advisable to scan a network that you have or you own, and kind of you have the permissions to scan, right? And because scanning devices on the public internet without the owner's consent is considered as an act of hacking, and it can be unethical depending on the purpose or the intent of the scan. So before you run any scan, make sure you have the correct permissions. I hope you liked the video. Do hit the like button and drop in your comments. Till then, keep hacking, stay safe, stay secure. Hacker TV signing off.
See you again.